Life is the soul's journey to experience this physical world. Living life to the fullest is how we get the most from that experience. Join me in my podcast and YouTube series to explore the soul's journey and our connection to spirit. Hi, I'm Kennedy Morgan, Spirit Medium, and welcome to Hello from Heaven. Welcome, everybody. This is Kennedy Morgan. It's so good to have my second episode of Hello from Heaven. So today on my show, I have a little bit of a surprise for you. Later on, we'll talk about it. But I want to introduce you to one of my good friends, Vicki Cartwright. And well, first of all, Vicki, welcome onto my podcast, Hello from Heaven. How are you?
Well, thank you, Kennedy. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm actually excited to be here.
So what have you been doing since you've been back in PV?
You know, I've been back here for 3 weeks, so I've been getting my mom settled and lots of running around. And I actually haven't been doing a bunch of which I love to do is my reading. So I really miss doing my reading. And I can feel.
By the way, just so everybody in the podcast know, Vicki is not only is she a good friend of mine, but she's also a medium as well. And so I invited her onto the podcast so that we could just kind of sort of shoot the breeze and kind of sort of catch up here, because we haven't really had a chance to speak that much since you've been back in Canada. And now that you're back, I'm so excited. So
yeah,
give us a chance to catch up today.
Yeah, and it's been fun kind of doing my readings on Zoom now, which I'm more familiar with doing them in person. I bought this cool little thing at the market today. Can you see it?
What is that, a broom?
It's like a broom. I was listening to a podcast from a friend today, and it was called about witches' wounds, which I actually didn't know about. And I was really cool listening to it. And then I came across this lady, and it's for brushing the skin, for dry brushing.
What does it do though?
It's just good for the skin. It stimulates it. So have you heard of dry brushing? Yeah. So
I haven't heard of dry brushing before. What is that about?
So it's just stimulating the skin. Do you know how before we put either cream on it or before you go into a steam or anything, just bringing the blood to the surface, and it's really makes really soft skin. But she makes brooms for sweeping the floor also, and they look, and they like a little witch's broom. And they're great. She makes little pot scrubbers too. Yeah, she's at the Saturday market. So I had a bunch of fun with her and brought some little Christmas gifts.
Oh, wow. Were you there today? Because I was just there like right after my house cleansing session. Earlier this afternoon. So
oh, nice. I was there from about 9 o'clock. I went and grabbed my goodies and my fresh bagels.
You got there early. I don't get out until probably after 10. But I was up late last night. I think, with this phlegm that I've been trying to get rid of, I've been drinking a lot of tea. And last night, I think I drank too much black tea. And so I was up and I couldn't sleep. So I was up until 5 o'clock last night, just working on my website.
Oh, wow. I hate when
I didn't get to sleep until 5. And then I woke up like around 8 or something like that. So I basically just got like 3 hours of sleep. That's okay though.
You look refreshed though.
Oh, thank you. So do you. By the way, you look really good. When I saw you for the first time this year, I was thinking you look really good and strong. So, thanks. And your energy was just like really good too. So
thank you. I've been doing a lot of inner work last year, and I find actually when I'm doing the readings and doing, stuff that we do, it energizes me and gets my vibration, so I've been vibrating at that high space for a while, which has been really fun.
Yeah. And then you're working at what is that metaphysical store that you're working at in Canada?
In Canada, it's called Divine White Lotus. Yeah.
And Divine.
Yeah. So I was working there 3 days a week. And it was just fun. There's a lovely group of healers there and spiritual people, and the clients there are awesome. And it was hard to leave, but you come down here and we meet the same type of people. Like I met you when I came down 2.5 years ago, right? The universe just leads us into special people we're supposed to meet and just walk along our journey and our path. Yeah,
and it's God. Can you believe it's already been 2.5 years?
I know. Yeah, no, I know. It's crazy. It almost seems like weeks ago, and then it almost seems like years ago also.
Exactly. So time flies so fast. And then it's like when we met, I just felt like it was just this like automatic connection already. So so it just our friendship just kind of sort of unfolded from there, and I'm really happy about that, by the way. So
Yes.
um
Me
yeah.
as well. It was crazy how the universe aligned us, and it was perfect what I needed for my journey I was going through with that time too. And it just, I think Harley had something to do with that also with the universe. But
Mhm. Tell the audience who Harley is.
okay, Harley's my son, and he's in spirit world. Harley passed away like 2.5 years ago, and that's actually how I met Kennedy. I came down to Mexico because Harley had spent so much time down here, and I just wanted to get out of Vancouver and start my healing journey. And Mexico just called to me, and I came down here with my mom. And I think probably within the first week, I believe I looked you up on the internet, like a medium. I don't even know actually how, but I booked an appointment, a session with Kennedy, and
Oh,
my sister.
really? I always thought it was through Cassandra.
No, I don't think until after she told me that you guys had met.
Oh, so by the way, Cassandra owns Cassandra Shaw Jewelry down here in Puerto Vallarta. She's like one of the most popular jewelry stores here. She's got amazing stuff in her store. But I always thought that that's how we got connected. I didn't realize that you had looked me up from some
Yeah, and
other
then
avenue.
I think when I chatted with her, because we've known each other for 30 years, she told me that you guys are friends, you'd worked with her for a while, and then she still was a skeptic of the medium world, right? So, and
Mhm.
I love her dearly, and I think we're turning into a believer the more the years go on and on. So when I did the reading with you, I was still really heavily into my grief. And I'd had a couple, if I go back a bit, I had a couple sessions with Harley before I had left, where he had joined a circle that I was in, a healing circle. Some energy people had welcomed me to the circle and just wanted to give me some healing before I left. And Harley had came through in a profound way in that circle. And I was really confused of what was happening. I'd done energy work and teaching meditation and readings through more psychic abilities in the years before Harley had passed. So the mediumistic skill stuff going through, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just my grief. But it was Harley, coming through, just wanting to let me know that he was okay.
Yeah.
That and validating messages that it was him. And he was just kind of like blew my mind. So when I met you and you gave the reading, it was a huge part of my grief journey. It was a huge part of just looking at grief with a new lens.
Hmm.
I didn't talk about it to a lot of people. It was a lot of inner stuff because grief is, our own inner work and something that we do alone. And even sharing stuff like that, people just wouldn't believe what was going on at the time.
Yeah, I didn't realize, because we had talked about this before, but I didn't realize that you were actually doing meditation work prior to our first meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but was that your first, like, when you were in that other circle group or the other meditation group, was that your first kind of sort of spiritual connection with Harley, or with any spirit for that matter?
I've had lots before, but I didn't realize it was that way because with my readings, I would do like rose readings, chakra readings. So I just thought it was my ability as like an intuitive psychic ability.
Mhm.
But I didn't realize, like, now looking back, that I used my medium skills. I was using them unknowingly, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, when Harley came through at that circle, it was profound. He used somebody's body, and kind of came in and borrowed that body for a little bit, and just to give validating messages that he was okay. He wanted, he died at a hospital, so he wanted to make sure that we weren't mad at the nurses, and he was really adamant about that. And yeah, he just wanted to really say that he was going to be okay. And
Yeah.
for me, it really helped my healing, even though I battled throughout the years of trusting those messages in and out that he would still deliver.
Yeah.
That first part of it was a deep that, yeah, okay, this is bigger than I thought. So, it really got me investigating into more trying to get in touch with him.
Yeah. So I can't imagine, like, okay, course, I don't have kids, but I can't imagine losing a child because it's, when I do my own mediumship work sometimes or in my sessions, a lot of times children will come forward and it- and the message usually is, and then there's the parents that are left behind. They survive their child. And it's usually the message is that, uh, a lot of times parents who survive a child's passing, they're the ones who wish that maybe it was them instead. It's almost like it's supposed to be the parents that pass
Yeah.
first and not the child, and then that makes it very kind of sort of sad, or the the situation sad, because I don't think there's any parent out there, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any parent out there who would be okay with their child passing before they do. So, but and then in the number of years I've known you, you've gone through so much in terms of your own grief and things like that. And I don't want to get into that if you don't feel comfortable with that. So, but I just want you to know that I really admire you and your strength, and what you've shared with me at a private level in terms of your own grief and what you've gone through and what you've worked through and what you've had to kind of sort of deal with along the way. So I hope that that you should really be proud of yourself and the things that you've accomplished in over the past year and a half. So 2 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be, 2.5 years now.
Mhm.
Yeah, and thank you. And it's something that I've actually taken a deeper look into the last couple of months of trying to put more joy into my life. And
Mhm.
that's kind of like Harley's message to me in the last 3 or 4 months was like, okay, mom, it's now time to stand on your own 2 feet, which to me means be more in a human world, the human planet,
Uh,
instead of playing in the spiritual world. But yeah, losing a child is the worst imaginable thing any parent, can go through. But at the other, time when we do go through, our heavy grief, I think the kids, or I find like, especially with a lot of people that I've read for and clients, and the universe keeps on sending me, parents. The kids' message is that, they really want us to know they're okay, and they want us to live, a
yeah.
living fully life, for them, and kind of almost honoring them in a way. Um,
Hmm.
and that's why at first, like I didn't want to get into the mediumship and doing it for a full on career. I was, I wanted to do it for myself. I was very, selfish, and wanted to do it just for the connection for Harley and I. But it just wouldn't, he wouldn't let it stop, and neither would the universe. And when I, looked at it more of as what I offer is for my service and my healing, how I can help somebody else, look at grief differently through a different lens.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but
Yeah.
it's open, it opens up conversation, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think what makes you special is that, well, amongst many other things, but one that makes you special in being a medium is that you've gone through that grief
Yeah.
and you've gone through the passing of someone. So you know what it feels like firsthand. And it's not just you repeating what spirit says, but you actually understanding the whole, what that other person might be going through when they're coming forward to you or coming to you to connect with someone that they love on the other side. So, and that's I think what makes you do so well at being a medium, because you've had that experience already.
Yeah, I think, and
So,
I had to really surrender, and for me, when I really
mm,
wanted to connect, I had to do it from my heartfelt place, and it's hard to be in
mm.
anger and love at the same time. So I had to do a lot of that work, even though I off and on.
Grr,
Yeah,
ha,
right.
grr, ha.
And grief likes angry, right? And it's okay to be anger, but it
Uh,
serves a point, right? But it doesn't
yeah.
serve for me to be in there, a lot of my ways. And I've got to give, like, my son's, he's been amazing with me on this journey. And he didn't want to let up. He always was helping everybody,
Mhm.
on this journey. So he keeps on sending me, people that are, I find, stuck, because I was stuck for a while, right? I didn't actually know what to do with my grief. I didn't know much about grief. So I, when I first lost Harley, I was numb, and I don't remember actually the first 6 months or so, but I did go into the spiritual kind of circle, but even in there wasn't that many books. There wasn't that many peer-to-peer groups. In the meantime, this is just a short little thing. I started working with different organizations and doing peer-to-peer grief coaching. I took that David Kessler grief practitioner coaching. A lot of it was for my own healing, but also to share with others what is out there. Even in the last year, there's more talk about it, which is so helpful because it's a conversation people don't like to have.
No, well, yeah, because it's so close to the heart, and like you said earlier, I think grief is a private thing. People go through their own process, and I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you have more experience than I do, clearly, but I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to actually experience grief or go through it, and I believe that if someone's telling you what to do or how to do things, or um saying something like oh, it will get better the next day, or oh, go do this and you'll feel better, or um do this to distract yourself. And I think sometimes that's not always the most helpful thing. Sometimes that person just needs you to be there and just not say anything at all, but knowing that you're there is just the support that they need. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100%. It's, the best thing that some people can say if they feel uncomfortable is to say nothing. I actually read something that's kind of was in a grief group. It was like, to shut the fuck up if you don't know what to say. I don't know. I like to swear,
Yeah. Yeah.
but people are uncomfortable about it. So like you say, it's about holding space, but there's the last thing you want to hear is, that it's going to be okay or it's going to be over, because grief is never over. It's not over till
Yeah.
we die and we go see our loved ones on the other side. Like you say, I think you've said before, like love is eternal, right? So is grief, right? They're both,
Oh, you know what? Oh, wow. I never thought about it that way, but that's so true, because I think whether it's grief in losing a loved one, or whether it's grief in losing a partner, or breaking up, or losing a job, whatever that may be, it is a process that we go through. And sometimes, we may be able to manage it and work through it, but it never goes away.
no,
So,
no.
and it stays with us, much like love, right? But
Yeah.
they're kind of a very fine line between the two.
100%, and like you say, I think a great thing is like learning to manage the emotions of grief and understanding, all the different emotions that are attached with grief. I've really been working with my sadness and my joy, and they're compelling. I balance them side by side, because I find a hard one in grief is allowing joy into your life and then not being guilty about it. And that's
Do
playing
you
with.
think? Do you think that that's you though?
Oh, in my head, yeah. I play with those things
Really?
in my head. Yeah, I just don't talk about them out there, but that's kind of my
Really?
ego state type, yeah.
Then you must be like a functional griefer.
Oh, 100%. And that's
It's because I would have never known that, because I've never, for the time that we spent together, and uh never have you ever been sad to me, or seemed sad, or seemed like you were going through your grief process. You've always been so light and so bright and so positive, and so um just very, just you. You've always been you, and I've always seen you like that. So it's interesting that you say that you have those moments, because I've never seen it. And I think that's why, I think you're so strong. And I think you've got it together. Even though maybe you may not think that, but I think
yeah.
you do.
Sometimes
You
I got
know?
it together. I've given myself permission to cry, and I'm okay if people don't see me cry. And the crying is less, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Than from the beginning. But when sometimes I call like a grief burst or a love burst, it'll just knock me on my socks. But I'm used to managing my emotions. So when it comes,
Mm,
it's like a wave overcoming you. Right. So even
mm.
when that sadness comes, I can be amongst a bunch of people, and sometimes I can be okay. And sometimes I'm really good at just walking away and nobody even noticing.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that really takes someone who really knows themselves, that's for sure. So let's get back to Harley, because since we've known each other, and really starting to develop your own practice as a medium, I know he's been a huge, huge impact and factor in your development, and how you've started your practice and things like that. So talk to me about that.
He has. It's interesting because part of the grief, what we were talking about before, is about 6 months ago. He's kind of like, he's here and around me as our loved ones are always, but he's fainter. He's like really told me like, Mom, you know what I mean? I love you. I'm with you always, but he's got work to do up there also. And he shared, that's another conversation of what they do up there. But in the beginning, he was really, really pushing for me to go in the mediumistic part of my life. He came through in the early parts, the first year, through channeling, through automatic writing. And I probably got about 7 to 8 journals. I haven't gone through them in depth yet. For me, it's something to do in my 3rd year. And it's kind of like, and that's another part of my grief journey is diving into those parts. Because he shared a lot of what was going on in the spirit world, and what he was going through, and just different past live stuff of his stuff, like cleaning up his karmic path. And it was really fascinating and interesting, but a lot of it I don't remember. There's some certain ones. So I wanted to be, for me, in a better headspace to go do that.
Tell the audience what automatic writing is for those who don't know.
So it's just basically how I actually found out is I'm a journaler. I would journal my feelings, and Harley started coming through. So I'd be writing what was going on in my day. And then all of a sudden I felt his presence, and it just started coming through, or my handwriting would change, and he was coming through. And at first I didn't understand what was going on. I just thought it was, the crazy mother. And then when I surrendered and kind of let it just go, it was insane what would come through. And it was just, a lot of it was, he didn't want to die. You know what I mean? He wanted to, know that he still wanted to be here on earth. He wanted to know that he was okay. He's really, peaceful, and joy. He was really excited that he could help other people. Harley was always helping other people, but he's always very like mystical, even in his own way, like in the human Earth School. So he loved it that he could mess with people's minds, right? So he was always turning off lights, computers, doing, dimes is a big thing for him, and feathers with all our family members. And a lot of people found his presence where they would hear him. And people that didn't have the intuitive ability, like we know we all have it, but a lot of people were really listening. He was very good at holding the space in that environment, and getting them to channel.
Wow. I love that he comes through with that, because I think I always like to say, people don't need mediums. You don't need to pay to come see a medium.
True.
What you do when you come see someone like you or myself is that you're just coming for the validation that your loved ones are still around. And because your loved ones will always come to you through signs and symbols, like what Harley came to you, feathers, dimes, electrical stuff, things like that, they allow you to see, or have you see, so that that they're with you. And for those people who have had loved ones crossed over recently or in the past, sometimes we don't see those signs or symbols because we're so deep in our grief, or we're so deep in that space, and we're more focused on the survival of the emotion and the mental processes of the grief itself. And so we don't see those things. And I would always encourage people that, if they want to see a sign from their loved ones, to just basically try to lift your spirits up, reach for a higher emotion or a better emotion every single day. And then as you do, your loved ones will come through to you with a little bit more clarity. Sometimes they'll, come to you in your dreams, or through the dimes or the nickels or the feathers or the butterflies, things like that. And it's not like they're controlling those things. It's just because they have a bigger and broader perspective than we do here in the physical world. They could see, the past, the present, and then a little bit about the future, to nudge us into the right place, the right moment, at the right time, to see what they want us to see, to let us know that they're there. And so I always find it fascinating that spirit can do that. And if anybody who's lost, a loved one to spirit, then be open to those signs or synchronicities and symbols that come forward for you, because you might be surprised.
Yes, I find it fascinating, and I agree 100% is when you trust and surrender, and just even ask your loved ones sometimes too. Sometimes they're busy, like you say, but most of the time they'll give you signs,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always like to tell people too, like, if you're going to ask, then ask and not expect.
Exactly.
Like,
Ask and
don't
surrender.
expect that.
Yeah.
Ask and surrender, but not expect, or expect it to come forward in a certain way. They don't talk to you. So if you ask them a question, don't expect to hear their voice in your head. They might answer you through a sign or a synchronicity or a symbol, or, you might be saying, should I, invest in this company? And maybe you go out that day and you sit down at Starbucks and you're eavesdropping on a conversation next to you, and they're talking about investing in a company, and the attorney that talking with the other person says, yes, it would be a good idea. Well, that would be like a sign or a synchronicity right there, right? And also too, usually when you see symbols, it usually comes in threes. So if you're seeing a symbol once, that might be your loved one. It may not be your loved one. But if you see repetitions in the sign over, a period of a few days or a week even, then you can pretty much bet that they're trying to get your attention. So if you see the butterfly over and over again, one day you see it, the next day you see it, the third day you see it, the next week you see it, that means someone's trying to get a hold of you. They're trying to get your attention to let you know that they're there. So, but sometimes people see just one sign and they're like, oh, that's my mom. And I won't take that away from them, but I will always say, okay, that might be. If it happens again, then you can pretty much bet it is.
That's so
Type of thing.
interesting. You said the butterfly. Well, I was up at the pool today visiting a friend, and a butterfly came by, and then I just kind of put my hand out, and it landed on my hand, and I ended up putting
Oh,
it on
that's
my
so cool.
shoulder. And yeah, and brought it down to the room. So my husband took some pictures of it, and I was just like, I said the same thing. Thanks, Harley, for coming and visiting me today.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, and when things do odd, or like butterfly, that butterfly, for example, had an odd characteristic to it, like it just landed on you or it followed you around. That's a sign too as well. Or let's say if you're on a boat in the ocean and a butterfly is there when it shouldn't be there, that's a sign as well. So we have to kind of sort of be aware of, how often the sign comes forward and how unique in the location that it appears, and then also to how unique it is in terms of like how it relates to that person or the spirit. Okay, so some spirits, let's say your mother loved hummingbirds, right? And so you knew that, and then you see hummingbirds regularly in your house. Well, then and you connect every single time you see the hummingbird, you feel the energy of the presence of your mother. That would be her letting you know that she's there with you.
And I think when they start doing that too, it's a great way that we raise our vibration. Even a lot of times it's just the internal, right? People will share with loved ones, but it's for you. That message is for you, right? It's not for, the validation of other people. It's like going in and, like you say, asking, where was it? What else is it aligned with? Because it's usually something that they want us to really look at about ourselves.
Yes, so I believe in that. So I want to tell the audience that we went to, what is that place called again? Oh my gosh, Yerba Buena here in Mexico. It's just like maybe, 15-20 minutes east or southeast of Mascota in Mexico, in Jalisco, Mexico. And we went to the vortex there.
That was really cool.
That was cool. And it was so funny because when I took you there, you were like, I just thought you were just like,
I thought you were making it up.
Making it up, or like, hyping things up just a little bit. And I was like, no, I wasn't. So for those of you who've never been to Yerba Buena or Mascota before, there is a little vortex out there. It's called a focotonal, spelled F-O-C-A or C-O. Tonal. So you can look it up on the internet, Google it. But it's an energy vortex where when you stand in the middle, this is the crazy part. When you stand in the middle of the vortex, it distorts your voice, and there's no reason for it. And so Vicki and I went up to I'd have been there before, but Vicki and I went up there along with some other friends as well. And I had the most fun that day.
Oh, it was
Just
so
hanging
much
out
fun.
at the vortex. Yeah. So, and it was funny because we would get in the middle of the vortex and say, okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Like the AT&T commercial from way back when. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? But our voices would be distorted. Outside the circle, you couldn't hear the distortion, only inside the circle at the very center, which is the weirdest part.
Yeah, it
Did
almost
you
felt
feel?
like you had a megaphone inside of you. And then
Yeah, oh, that's,
standing there, this megaphone was just amplifying, like, and you could feel the energy, but it was coming from your fifth chakra, your
yeah,
communication centers. So it was
yeah.
our what we were saying and hearing at the same time. It was so cool.
It was cool. Did you feel any energy there at all? Because I'll be honest with you, like I didn't feel any energy, but I did I did witness the physical, aspects of the vortex that when it distorted the voice, I mean, that's a clear sign that something's going on there that,
Oh,
you can't
totally.
explain, you
When I
know.
sat
But I,
down, when I sat down, I could feel it really slightly, just like a
mhm,
twirling kind of starting. But as soon as you started to talk, it would amplify. So it was just like,
yeah,
it was, yeah.
there was there was only one point where I felt slightly dizzy. It was the point when we were moving back and forth towards the center and then away from the center when we were trying to
Mhm.
figure out this when the distortion started as you get closer to the center of the vortex. And at that point I got a little bit dizzy, but other than that I didn't really feel anything, spectacular or anything like that,
Yeah.
but definitely the distortion of the voice and the sounds was just incredible. So yeah,
And
and
I
it's
did
funny
feel a
because it's
shift. I could feel a shift, especially, about an hour after. Like I just felt like,
mhm,
like I had a chakra cleanse, especially my fifth. I've
yeah.
always been stuck in that area and it really felt a lot more expansive to that area.
Did you feel tired after that?
Yes. But I think that
I
had
felt
something to do with the drive too. It was a long day.
mm, yeah, it was a long day, but I felt really like I got home and I literally crashed.
Yeah.
I was that tired. And I don't normally crash like that. I normally like stay up until like 1 or 2 in the morning and then slowly fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I just crashed that day as if I'd run the marathon or something like that. It
Yeah.
was like that. I don't know if it was the vortex or it was just me tired. I have no idea, or the ride, but the long ride. But I was pretty tired that day. So, but I had such a fun day, and the people that we went with, I know also had fun too.
Oh,
So,
it was amazing. I'm so glad. Thank you for inviting me. That was an awesome day.
have um have you ever been up there before though,
No, that's my first time even
or
at
was
the
that
San Sebastian. Yeah, that was my first time. I've been to
okay? So
vortexes before in Sedona, but the Sedona, like you say, you can feel more the energy. And that's what I was expecting. That's why this one was so cool because it just felt like it amplified the energy throughout your body with your voice and hearing.
yeah,
Senses were so
yeah.
heightened.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna try and recreate that down here at the Isla Quale because I
Ooh, that'd be
found
so cool.
I was using dowsing rods. The
Cool.
ones, let me see if I can find them here. Um,
Are they copper ones?
yeah, the copper ones
Oh,
that I
yeah.
got from Ungulu.
Right.
Um, yeah, I got these dowsing rods here. So Ungulu is this metaphysical store here in Puerto Vallarta. It's located in Versailles. But I use these dowsing rods, and what I did was I started going from one end of the island and going back and forth using my dowsing rods. I'm sure people were thinking
People think
thought I
you're
was
crazy.
crazy. Crazy. I'm holding these dowsing rods like this and just walking back and forth, watching if they're gonna come close together or cross or whatever to signify that there's some degree of energy in that space. So I was going back and forth, and finally I crossed this area by the Rotunda House
Mm,
um, in the middle of the park. And funny enough, that when I had originally approached the Isla Quale group who does the beautification of the island, um, they I asked them if I could do it in a specific spot, not knowing at that time that there was that energy there, but I just kind of sort of felt, this would be a great spot. I don't know how I knew that. But then as I did the dowsings and I started dowsing for the energy, in that spot was where the dowsing rods crossed. And as they cross, that's how you know that there's some degree of energy there. So I've done some research on you know, focal tonals and energy vortexes, things like that. So in February, I'm going to be starting my building of the vortex. So I got the go ahead to do that. So I'm very
Oh,
excited
so
about it.
exciting. That's so
Yeah.
exciting.
And it's going to be, you know, something for the community. So you won't have to pay to go see it, but it'll just be something that people can enjoy and, you know, have fun with and be fascinated by, and hopefully get some healing too. So
I'm sure they will. It'll be amazing.
yeah. So I'm very excited about that. So tell us what's going on with you. What's new in Vicky's world? What's happening with you? I know you got your new website up,
I
right?
do. My website is
Okay.
vickycartwright.com. I've had that up for a while. I'm actually working on a workshop. I'll have it ready second week of January 11th, and it's a 3-week series. And it's similar to what we were talking about for allowing people to experience on their own and learn about their own innate abilities working with spirit, especially with their loved ones. Because I find a lot of clients, I don't know if you find, you know, once they've connected, they want to learn how to do it on their own. So that's what the course will kind of be around in a roundabout way. Yeah.
And what does the course entail? Like what's your process?
For the process, I always like to start with inner work, which is, you know, a lot of meditation. From my background, that's how I started my healing journey about 15 years ago. So it's just showing people, you know, little tools, and different meditations resonate for everybody. So I have a basic one that I usually do, and then I like to offer, you know, 3 or 4 different people that I use that might resonate with them. I always like to do alignment with the chakras. I know you believe in that too, right? So we're aligned in balance. And then once kind of in there is, you know, tipping the toe into the spirit world and kind of letting, you know, a lot of times I find people have the abilities and are even using some of it. They just don't know what it is. So
Yeah.
it's sharing that. Then I'm like, oh, that's what that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you
Yeah,
know,
I was gonna say that's exactly how it was when I was a kid. You know, in hindsight, when I look back and I think to myself, did I have this or what? Like, what the hell happened in my 30s that this would happen? Like, I would come about and start, you know, becoming a medium. Because if you would have asked me prior to my 30s or told me prior to my 30s that I was gonna, you know, have a flourishing medium practice, I would laugh at you, probably walk away and just roll my eyes, because I joke around and I always say like I'm a natural skeptic, which I am because I come from a very logical, you know, background working in real estate and project management and IT work and things like that. So and it's just so far removed from what I do now. But yeah, just not knowing what it was part of it, and not understanding like what was happening and why I was getting things I was getting. And I like sometimes I would get these thoughts and I thought, well, it's just my own imagination, not realizing that, oh, okay, it's not your imagination because you're not actively creating it in your head. Like you're not actively creating the thought. It's just a random thought that comes through. I didn't realize that at the time until later on when I started researching more into mediumship and what it's all about, and you know how to develop it and things like that. So I think that even when you have it naturally, you still have to understand it and develop it to a degree where you can actually be professional with it. So and that's one of the things that I'm really, can I just say this? I'm no one special, and you know, when I say this, but I am so incredibly proud of you because you've taken that aspect of things and you just ran with it. Because I remember, you know, we had a few coaching sessions there, and I was coaching you on a few things, and you literally just took the information and absorbed it and sucked it all up and ran with it. And then here you are today, and I'm like, you know what? She is someone who's going to do well in this work. And I'm so happy that you're doing it because I think you're an excellent person to be able to help others.
well, thank you. I'm like you, this would be the last thing that I thought I'd do, or friends, right?
Yeah.
But I think, you know, and this is where I call them my Harley gifts. Harley was not going to let me not do this, right? And one of the aspects is for my healing, but also to show how other people may want to choose to heal in this aspect too. Because grief just loves to get stuck in our bodies and stuck. And you know, it doesn't mean that everyone wants, you know, to be a medium. I feel my energy past from before really aligned with this. And like you said, I didn't realize my abilities that I, now looking back when I was younger, everything just started making sense. But and working with the universe, like I think a lot of the work is a lot of inner work, as you know, right? I can't do this work unless I'm aligned. So I like to teach a lot because with that part, with being aligned and balanced, and it doesn't have to be heavy work. It's just like you say, little tips and tricks throughout the trade. And we're all unique and we all have different styles. So it's the biggest thing for me is trusting and surrendering, which is the hardest thing, right? Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's funny because that was a challenge when I first started doing this as well. I was, people think that this just comes so naturally that I'm not it's always been like this for me, and it hasn't. When I started wrapping my head around, mediumship and being able to communicate on to the other side, and with spirit, I was afraid, to be honest with you, because like thoughts like possession and evil spirits and demons and devils and things like that like started running through my head, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I had to really learn to step away from that perspective and really be in the moment with spirit so that I can learn what it truly is about, so that I can surrender completely.
100%.
And when I surrender completely is when, my practice just took a turn and everything just kind of sort of took off. So, yeah.
It's like you say, getting out of the ego space, right? Which is easier said than done. And then just all like, whereas we're just a channel and a vehicle for spirit to work through. So, they're the amazing ones up there, but
yeah,
they love it when you do the extra development, and you know what I mean? You're putting those intentions out over and over. And like you say, I enjoy the work. It's who I am now. And I'm always doing different things. And as soon as I open up one door, it's like the universe is like, okay, let's go with this one. And, it's a constant learning, but it's so exciting. So exciting.
I see you sometimes as like I see your inner child is what I see when you approach this work. Because sometimes you'd be like, I don't know if I want to do that yet, and then I'll say something like, oh, let's do this together, and you're like, okay, well, I'll think about it, and then the next day you'll approach me like, oh my God, I'm so excited, let's do this.
Well, I think,
and I love it.
It's
I love it
part about it is scary, and a couple of times like I tried to go away this summer and have 3 weeks just by myself and my husband, and we had such an amazing time. And I was like, okay, universe, I want to shut down. I don't want to be a bereaved mother. I just want to be Vicki. But as I realized, and I actually knew that I've changed. It's a new Vicki, right? And I love the new version of me. And spirit just and the universe don't let you stop doing this. And I've learned that a very interesting, fun way. They just bump it up,
yeah.
do not forget
There's when it's a calling, when it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Like it just continues. It's one thing to, learn about mediumship and maybe have your own connection with your loved ones, like your own loved ones on the other side. It's another thing to have that urge and that desire and that push to keep going and going and going and going. And before you know it, not only you're connecting with your own loved ones on the other side, you're connecting with everybody else's loved ones on the other side. And then the room becomes full.
Do you want to hear a cute story that just popped into my mind?
Yeah.
I think when I first started doing the automatic writing, you told me to go read Billy Fingers, the book. You actually gave it to me. And then it made sense to me about what was happening. One of our condos today, one of our clients, I was up there giving her a poinsettia, and I went to go use her bathroom, and on the counter, there was Billy Fingers' book. And I loved that book. So I said to her, I was like, who's reading the book? And she's like, I am. And I'm like, and this to me is another sign of validation, right? For me, what I was thinking about that day, yesterday, today. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm just into mediumship and blah, blah. So I was like, well, do you know I'm a medium? She's like, oh, I knew there was something different about you. I said, yeah, that's not weirdness, right?
You mean it's not just your red hair that's different
Yeah,
about you?
yeah. So it was so cute. But that's those
Oh,
things, I mean, she's like, I never knew who to
I love
talk
it.
to about that stuff. So I thought it was so
I
cute.
I love it. I love moments like that too. And I was just gonna say, as you were talking about the Billy Fingers thing, I just got this zing to say that Harley was there and he brought you and put you in that moment to see that book to let you know how far you've come from that
I
time when
know.
you first read the book until now.
I know.
And
That's what made me
you've come
laugh.
along. But the thing is, you've come a long way in such a short time. That's the thing, and that's another thing about people who have the calling to do this. The development is fast and it seems like it's
Yeah.
rushed and you're trying to catch up with things all the time. Because I remember when I first started doing this too, it I it it was fast, it wasn't slow. Like
Yeah,
like
it's not slow at all. And that's why I was getting frustrated with the universe. And I call it universe, my guy. But it was like now I've learned the same thing is just to surrender. I don't
yeah,
actually believe in linear time anyway. So I don't know why I'm so caught up on that, but it was just like slow down.
it's a human thing. I get caught up on time too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but we all do, I think. So what has been one of your favorite readings or most memorable reading, or can you or you do you remember them? Because I don't really remember. I mean, unless you jog my memories a little bit, but I don't really remember my sessions too much.
You know what? I had a great session when I was down here. I had friends down here, and I don't usually like reading friends because we know about them, right? So
Yeah.
this friend kept on bugging me and asking me, and I had done a distant reading. His father had passed away about 18 months ago. And actually, through one of my practices, I asked his wife if I could do a reading, and I never gave him the evidence. So I had him down in my notes. So he asked me on this trip, they've been down here for 3 weeks. And I just felt like I just didn't want to do it. And the universe was like, finally, I gave in and I had an
Mm,
amazing reading. And it was so validating for the sitter, just in a level of healing information, but also stuff that was going on on his life right now. And
mhm.
and the universe, yeah, it was just like, and I didn't even realize it was 1.5 hours long. And usually, like, that's a long reading. It just felt like it was 10 minutes. And his family had wanted to visit him. And what really stands out in the reading is the mother was showing me it was a prayer. And it was like in a wallet size. And he kept on saying, well, it's a Bible, it's a Bible. And I've been taught just whatever they keep on telling me, I say, as you go through.
Mhm.
And she kept on going, no, tell him it's smaller. And I thought it was my ego state because she started talking like me. So I was like, and then finally she goes, no, I just want you to get the point across. So I said to him, no, it's something small and you actually have it. And he was like, no, I don't. So we just put that aside. And then the next day he looked in his luggage and he had the prayer. And the mother was Italian. And he had the
Mhm.
prayer, the card in his luggage. He always carried it for protection. So it was really cool.
I love validations like that.
Isn't it
Like I
cool?
love it. It's so awesome. Like it amazing. I've been doing this for I don't know how long now, but it still today amazes me how they come forward with this
Oh,
information. Like we all you and I understand the process, but
mhm.
the inner workings of it itself is just like, how the hell did that they come and how did the hell did they even like get me to say that? Like it's just incredible, and I'm always so amazed, and it's so yeah, it's just it what when I first started off doing this here, it used to be so strong for me. Like the clarity in the information that would come through, it would be really strong. It's not that way so much anymore for me, but I think it's also because I've been doing this for a while, and I have my dictionary of signs and symbols and things like that that I call my spirit dictionary,
Yeah.
that allow me to just kind of sort of understand things in a quicker way, I guess, instead of trying to have to interpret so much. But I remember when I first started, like things were so clear, like signs and symbols and images and feelings and smells, things, they were so clear. And I wish that they were clear as it was for me back then today. But like I said, I think it's only because I'm used to this, and maybe it's just because I'm desensitized to the process. So now, even the most subtle information that comes through, I can understand what it means because I've already experienced it before in the past. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, I remember when I first started off, it was so clear. Was it that way for you too?
It's interesting you say that, because I wanted to give up about a year and a half ago. And the same for the first year, it was so insane crazy. Insane crazy. And then it was like you say, it was more, I was feeling it more and sensing it more. So the conversation was different with the sitter. But at the same time, it had the same meaning. It was more almost a healing session going through. And one of the ladies that I do mentorship with in Melissa White in Vancouver, she was saying the same thing. And it's usually like spirit really wants to grab us and get us in there, right? And then after the next year, they want us to really look at it and work at it differently. And use, like you say, more of our senses and give more of that feeling, right? I still get lots of validation, but it's not as crazy. Like there would be like a red truck right in front of me. Like, and that was like, boom, now the red truck is more in the background and that feeling of that situation is more in the forefront.
That's an excellent way to put it, because I feel the same way too, because it's always like and it happens so quickly and so fast. Like everywhere I went, there was somebody coming through for somebody in the audience or the crowd or my friends or at the bar. I used to go out with my friends, and they would make a joke about me, and they would say, "Hey, where's Kennedy?" And I would be in the corner of the bar and giving a reading to somebody, and they would be crying on my shoulder, and that was like their ongoing joke. So yeah, things back then it just came through so fast, and I feel as if they were trying to rush, like put me through that kind of sort of fast track of mediumship type of thing, where I just felt rushed and pushed forward so fast all the time. Not so much anymore. Things don't feel that way anymore for me, because I think I've been doing it for a while now. But yeah, I remember that. So has there ever been a time when you felt scared, or when you felt like, or even like or when you had a scary reading, or have you ever had a scary reading?
Not really. I've had like some really strange and weird ones, but my stuff is like that. So the hardest ones for me, I think, is when I first started getting the parents coming. I thought, you know what I mean? It's so meaningful. Like I thought what I went through, if their loved one didn't come through, I would be devastated. But spirit actually, you know what I mean? They never do, right? They're always there. So once I got through that, it was, you know what I mean? It was fine. The scariest part is when you asked me to do the live demonstration that I did a year and a half ago. And when I had friends in the crowd that I was getting messages about their loved ones, and I've already read them, and I didn't want to give the message out, I learned loud and clear that spirit is like, say it, say it, say it. And I wasn't going to say it till after. So that was probably the scariest. But I'm just grateful working with spirit, and I sometimes have that little incline. I think I always do that. Something's, I'm not going to get it right or something, but in my heart, I know they're never going to let you down. They've always got your back.
No, they don't. I used to think that too. I used to think, even with like when I first started, doing it professionally, I would get so nervous. I would spend like 2 hours in meditation and just for one client. And just to make sure that spirit would come through, because I was always afraid, well, what happens if they don't come through? But that's never happened, really. And well, I shouldn't say that. It's maybe happened of the thousands of sessions that I've done so far in the number of years I've been doing this. It's maybe 8 times where, things didn't make sense right off the bat, or things didn't come through, or I couldn't pick up any energy. But I don't think it's because of the person. I just think it's because of me, whatever I was going through that day. But in those cases, I've always rescheduled with my clients. And then all of a sudden things just flow the next time we get together. It's just the oddest thing sometimes, but they're always there. And sometimes, and going through this process of sometimes not having to have a connection, I've learned that people will always get what they need to hear at the time that they need to hear it. So even though you might make a scheduled appointment with me or you or any other psychic or medium out there, just because nothing comes through for you or things don't make sense for you at that time, it doesn't mean that, the energy are not there or the spirit's
Yeah.
not there or they're not safe and at peace or anything like that. It just means that at that moment in time, maybe you're not meant to receive that message. You're meant to receive it at a different time. And so that's why I always reschedule. But every single time when I've rescheduled, all of a sudden things flow.
Yeah.
And it's the oddest thing. But in terms of like scary moments, no. And I remember too when I did my first demonstration. It was at a place called Kids Jewelry Heist in Pasadena, California. It was a cute little store, adorable. And they did like it was very vintage looking, a little bit what do you call that? Victorian style. But they did jewelry. They had birthday parties and kids made jewelry and things like that, and it was really cool jewelry too. It wasn't like just, something silly, although it could be, but that was my first demonstration there. And I was so nervous. My voice was shaking. I was like, oh my God. I sat there and meditated for 3 hours just to make sure that spirit would show up. And I was so nervous. But it ended up, the crazy thing is, and even today I still get nervous. People don't think I am, but I still get nervous because
Yeah.
you always have that thing in your head. But once I start to ground myself and raise my energy, and I start to open myself up to spirit, it flows, and I forget about being
It
nervous.
goes
Like I'm
away.
not even. It goes away, and I don't even focus on it. It's like it's not even there. But it always happens like that. Even today, like when I have my events or demonstrations here in Puerto Vallarta, I still get nervous. It doesn't go away. But once it starts, That's it. So, but you did very well though at Bonito Kitchen. So
Yeah. It was a lot of
yeah,
fun. I had,
for your
yeah.
first time, you did extremely well, and I was very impressed and very proud of you. So, and I know I've been pushing you to do another demonstration with me this year, or maybe January, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to do another demonstration here for Christmas if I can. If I do, I hope you're going to say yes to do that with me, because I think that would be a great thing to do for the holiday season for both of us. So, and I think also too, it's time, since we're talking about working together. I think it's time to tell the audience that you're going to be joining me as a host on the podcast, on the Hello from Heaven podcast here on a regular basis. So I'm so excited about that. And I hope
Yes,
you are too.
I am. I'm excited too and honored. And it's like, it's like having those conversations. And I think people will be really excited to hear, what it's like in there, because like you say, we don't have special abilities. We just practice them, right? Anybody can, have mediumistic abilities.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's different. It's you see, the light in someone else's eyes when we, and
Mhm.
it's, oh, right. So that's what I'm really
Yeah.
excited about, sharing our stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. When they start to see the connection,
Yeah.
and start to connect the dots and put things together, and they're like, oh my God, I never realized that before. And then they start to run with that and explore that aspect of themselves that maybe they didn't understand or know about or afraid to explore. Before in the past. So
Mhm.
and I'm so happy to have you on board with this podcast, because I know that I've seen you, and I've witnessed your development and your own connection to spirit as well. So and I think that you're going to add a lot to this podcast. And plus, you've got your own experience with your son, and with your own interesting life too as well. And we'll get to know you more as we
Yeah.
have the podcast, and we'll get
Save
to know
some of
about your
those
life
kids.
and my life, and you. so um so I'm excited for the audience to get to know you. So so right now, are you doing just online stuff, or are you doing like in-person stuff as well?
I will do in person. I'm working in Puerto Vallarta right now, so I will do some in person, but I prefer Zoom actually. But some
Uh,
clients, still want to do, I really love doing the charm casting. So we'll have to chat about that next
mm,
time, because I'd like to maybe do some of that during the after Christmas.
yeah.
just playing around with it. It's so much fun, and spirit loves working with it. And what
Yeah.
they've gone through and that has just been, so much fun.
It's funny because I did a house cleansing today, and I
Mhm.
actually did the charms today.
Did you?
So
Cool.
yeah, I went, so my practice with house cleansing is that what I do is I take the charm board and the charms with me, and I don't have the client tell me what's going on and why they want me to do the cleansing. So I use the charms and I cast them, and the
Awesome.
charms tell me like what's going on in their
Yeah.
lives and things like that, Um, and from that, then once I understand and get the validation from them, then I have a better understanding of how to set my intention to actually, do the cleansing on their house or even on the person themselves. So yeah.
Perfect.
By the way, I forgot to mention to you, I posted on Facebook that I'm going to be I need to slow down my talk because I talk so fast. I got to remember that I'm on a podcast. I've got to slow it
Slow
down.
it down.
Slow it down. Because it's because I get so excited and I just want to
I
get
know it's
everything out
hard
all
when it's
at once.
vibrational.
Yes. So I'm going to be doing a cleansing on the beach where I'll have a beach bonfire and do a cleansing ceremony for people there. So I hope you're going to join me on that as well.
Oh, cool. I love it. I'm
Yes.
game for all that stuff, right?
You're
It's just,
game for all that stuff.
yeah.
So, well, we're coming up to the end of the hour here. I want to say thank you so much. I'm so excited to be working with you, and we're going to be bringing a lot of interesting people onto our podcast and topics and things like that that have to do with just spirit, the energy, the world of energy, and and our own connection with them too, just to create more awareness with people that there's more to life than just this physical world, and that love
Love never dies.
never dies and
It's
life is
eternal.
everlasting and
Yes.
life is eternal. Exactly. So that's going to be, I think, my tagline at the end of every episode.
That's
And you
cool.
could have your tagline too if you want to.
Yeah, I'll think
But
about
that's going to
that.
be my tagline.
I like that one.
Yeah. Vicki, thank you so much for joining me today. And I look
Oh,
forward to having our next podcast together.
thanks, Kennedy. And I'm grateful that I'm going to be a part of this. And I'm just so excited to share and learn and evolve together and have fun.
Yay, this is going to be fun for sure. So
Mhm.
thanks a lot. Take care,
Sure.
okay?
Yeah.
To book a session with Vicki, you can go to www.vickicartwright.com or with me at www.kennedymorganmedium.com.